Hey guys, Attorney Walter Hnot. What we're going to be doing is going live on something that's incredibly important, which is the future potential of $200 extra per month, essentially $2,400 per year of an increase for Social Security benefits. The reason that this is incredibly important is that a lot of Americans live at a base threshold, which is not enough to buy the basics. And we rely on all these alternative options, giving food to seniors, pre-made food options, pre-made meal options, pre-made healthcare options, pre-made assistance options. And the baseline fundamental for all this is that they don't have any extra money to spend at all. They consistently run out. So the question we're going to be answering today is, will in this month there be a $200 increase per month to Social Security benefits? And here's the reality of it. Howdy, Deb Carter. Howdy, howdy. Let's go into it real quick. Right now, the Social Security Expansion Act, which is the background, the basis for this $200 a month increase, $2,400 a month, or rather $2,400 a year increase. The Social Security Expansion Act, which in the Senate, S4365, is basically promoted as the main sponsor with Senator Bernie Sanders. And the whole thing was that it was introduced in 6/9/22, so not that long ago. The bottom line is that it's stuck right now in the Senate Finance Committee. And the issue is that it needs to be referred out of that to go ahead and get into a few more committees to make it out to the floor to actually get some signatures on it. Now, the main thing is this. It is unlikely for this $200 increase per month for Social Security benefits to be passed. However, with that said, and this is incredibly important, you need to understand the basics of what this bill is so that you know whether to support it or go against it. And I'm going to tell you the good and I'm going to tell you the bad. Now, please remember, if you like the content on this channel, please like, subscribe, ring the bell. And also the big thing that helps me the most, especially to compete against the big box firms, if you could use that link in the comments section, in the chat section, to go ahead and leave a 5-star review. Let's get right to it, guys. All right. Now, I'm going straight to Bernie's website. I want to read exactly what he's saying about what he intends to do here. I'm going to tell you the history of what he's trying to do here because it didn't start with him. This wasn't his idea, had nothing to do with his background. This comes way before his direct interest in touching it, and I'll show you the history of it. Here we go. Bernie Sanders' website, Expanding Social Security. This is what he had to say. At a time when about half of American households over the age of 55 have no retirement. Okay, let that sink in. Have no retirement savings, and 1 out of 5 seniors are trying to live on less than $13,500 a year. Our job is not to cut Social Security. Our job is to expand Social Security so that everyone in this country can retire with the dignity they have earned, and everyone with a disability can live with the security they need. Now, this is, for some wealthy individuals, not consistent with their logic pattern. Some wealthy individuals believe that because in the 20th century, retirement didn't exist, that it should not exist going into the 22nd century. And the reason for that, they believe, is that people will live longer and should continue to work more and more and more into basically the end of their life, just earning as much as they can. Now, as you guys have noticed, the rich are getting richer and the poor continue to be poor. And no matter how much work ethic we put into it to create as much work product we can, we don't really seem to get that far ahead at the end of this whole thing. So I want to go through this real quick. From that paragraph, we learned something which is incredibly important. There's about seniors are trying to live on less than $13,500 a year. That's 1 out of 5 seniors are living on that little a year. So the whole point of this is to expand it, increase it for the bottom base numbers, those who get hardly any Social Security benefits. Now, the next thing we're going to go through is Social Security, direct from his website, is the most successful government program in our nation's history. I would argue that that's probably correct. Maybe you could hold it up against the military, but the funny part about the military is that, essentially they've never had a plan that really worked out, exactly as planned. That's the big joke about the military. But not to sell VA benefits short, I think there's a lot more to the military program than there is the Social Security program. So there's one thing that I think we could focus on is that the Social Security program actually has a lot to learn from the VA program and, vice versa as well. But for this readout, Social Security, he believes, is the most successful government program in our nation's history. Before Social Security was signed into law, right? So that's 1930s, 1950s was SSDI, 1970s SSI. Nearly half of seniors lived in poverty. So around 50% lived in poverty. Today, while much too high, the poverty rate for seniors is down to 9.2%. So obviously, instead of 50%, it's now down to 9.2%. He wants to get it even lower so there's fewer individuals that are elderly living in their final years in poverty. Through good times and bad, the Social Security has paid every nickel owed to every eligible American. What he's saying is that throughout this time, the Social Security Administration has consistently been able to deliver funds to their Americans who are basically signed up and properly receiving their Social Security benefit check, which brings into question this whole issue that we're afraid of, which is that we're looking at the trust funds and they're looking at depleting in the next 10 years, that people will receive less, like 76 to 80% of the benefits that they were supposed to. So that statement from him was a little jab at essentially the modern day version of Social Security benefits, how we haven't legislated to keep up with it. Okay, so with that said, though good times and bad, Social Security has paid every nickel owed to every eligible American on time and without delay. This is an extraordinary accomplishment. Now, it is true that the Republicans during the Bush era tried to privatize Social Security benefits and pull away from the government, which would get us away from the federal government essentially creating a system that is backed by the full faith and credit of the US government. If it had gone into, for example, some sort of privatized system, the Republicans, they argued essentially that, hey, this would be a great thing because people could choose more how their money was invested as they would pay into it, etc. But the reality is that there wouldn't be as much control. There was a lot more potential for bias, destruction, problems. It just wasn't going to work. So they kept it with the government. Now, Bernie goes on to state, despite what you may have heard from those who want to cut back on Social Security, let's be clear. Social Security is not going broke. Social Security has a 2.9 trillion surplus and can pay every benefit owed to every eligible American for the next 16 years. Okay, that's good. Well, I don't know about the 16 years isn't exactly accurate based upon Stephen Goss's report, but which is the chief actuary of the SSA, but that's okay. We're going to keep reading. Although the Social Security's finances are strong, Congress must strengthen and expand it for generations to come. How do we do that? He says it's simple. At a time of massive income and wealth inequality, the wealthiest Americans in this country must pay their fair share into the system. Today, a billionaire pays the same amount of money into Social Security as someone who makes $132,900 a year because the Social Security payroll tax is capped. Now, the basics to understanding this, super simple. As you go ahead and make more money, you pay Social Security taxes on the income all the way up to $132,900. Because you get a benefit of receiving a monthly check when you're retired that reflects the money you paid in up to this amount. If you paid more taxes on it, you wouldn't get any benefit out of it. So when you have billionaires basically going ahead and not paying additional taxes going up, it's because they're not essentially receiving the benefit, right, of paying that extra tax above it. So when they become retired, they're not going to receive the benefit of it. So the reality here is that it's kind of like taxing somebody without representation. It's kind of like making somebody pay for something without them actually getting the benefit of it. Now, this has gotten to this point because politicians, long-term ones, this includes President Biden, this includes Bernie Sanders, have not been able to convince Congress over the past 30 years to fix the system as it continues to age. And the problem inherent with that is that we are now left with digging into billionaires and millionaires to save the American people. That's the truth. That's the harsh reality. Now, they don't ever spin it that way, but that's the truth. And to be honest with you guys, we're so far down the line that we may have to use the billionaires and millionaires to actually fix the Social Security system. Even though it's unfair to them, people don't care about them, people don't want to have to think about them getting some inequity, or it's not just to them. the reality is this. We're going to probably have to do it. We're going to probably have to put them in an unequal place because they have so much money and they have so much capacity to still be fine after taxing them above $132,900. Bernie's, and we'll go back to his website, Bernie's Social Security plan would lift this cap and apply the payroll tax on all income over $250,000 in order to accomplish four things. So what he's saying there is the cap is $132,900, and if anybody goes ahead and basically makes over $250,000, they're still going to get taxed with their payroll of what they received, which for many of these wealthy people will equate to millions upon millions upon millions more of taxes paid. That's how they intend to go ahead and fund the rest of this. Let's go through the 4 points. And I'm trying to be fair. You guys got to remember, there's a lot of people and a lot of websites out there that are basically saying, hey, let's just tax the rich. You have to understand why the rich are not going to be happy with this. You have to understand the outcome of what the rich can do to fight it. Baklava, howdy. Good to see you. Very cool. Thank you for the $5 donation. And hey, guys, if you get a chance, I'm going to put the little link in there real quick again. I always appreciate 5-star reviews because they help me compete against the mega big box disability law firms. Let's keep rolling. Now over here, this is Bernie's 4-point plan for making $250,000 and above taxable so that you potentially could get $200 more per month or $2,400 for the year. Point number 1. We will make sure the Social Security will pay every benefit owed to every eligible American for the next 52 years. Now, I want to share with you something that Bernie doesn't have in here that's historic related to that statement. For the next 52 years is what he's saying. They used to have this very similar bill. It's almost the exact same thing. This very similar bill, similar financial figures, similar outcome, the whole thing was similar. They used to have this bill being called the Social Security 2100 Act because the idea was to fund the Social Security system all the way to 2100. Now we're in 2022 right now, and Bernie came out with this new version, this new act, rewritten a little bit, but it's pretty much the same. If you add 52 on top of 22, you get 74. So that only takes us to, you guessed it, 2074 as opposed to 2100. So what they're saying is they don't have what the prior bill offered, which was safety to 2100. They only have safety to 2074. So you're losing out around a little bit less than, a little bit more than basically 25 years worth of safety net, which the other bill was promising, and this one isn't. Number 2, second, we will expand the benefits across the board, including a $1,300 a year benefit increase for seniors with incomes of $1,600 a year or less. So let me read that again. Second, we will expand benefits across the board, including a $1,300 a year benefit increase for seniors with incomes of $1,600 a year or less. Big boost for the bottom rung of receivers for retirement, meaning if you didn't work and pay in that much throughout your life. And some people sit back and they go, those people deserve less and they should be punished. And then other people will say, no, we need to give them at least a base standard. The reality is this. America was not always a place where you could find a job that paid you over the table. There's a lot of jobs still in America that are under the table. They'll always be there. It's never going to be a situation where there's always a perfect system to be paid that's going to be taxed. Okay. So in line with that, you've got to understand what he's trying to do here is make sure the bottom line people, the people who are receiving a very, very small amount, can at least reach a safety zone. And remember, this all ties into SSI as well, because if you're receiving a very small amount of retirement benefits that aren't equating to essentially if it's less than $850, $900 per month, SSI is going to jump in as an option for you. So if you're receiving retirement under your, $800, $900, you need to also file for SSI benefits as well to go ahead and boost your retirement benefits up to the maximum of what it can be with the assistance of supplemental security income. Now, why is that important? It's important because it gives you more benefits, but it gives you more restrictions as well. So go watch a video on supplemental security income restrictions, and that'll help you understand that better. Now, third point, we will lift, this is from Bernie's website, we will lift millions of seniors out of poverty by increasing the minimum benefits paid to low income workers when they retire. Again, third, we will lift millions of seniors out of poverty by increasing the minimum benefit paid to low income workers when they retire. So the baseline is going to go up. And it makes sense too, because the whole thing here is a lot of seniors who end up having to go ahead and receive a really small amount, because then there's a lot of reasons why. It could be a female that had to take care of elderly parents and couldn't work during that time. It could be an individual who had mental impairments or physical impairments that never got disability benefits because they didn't come out to being severe enough under the Title 16 and Title 2 requirements. It could be a retired person who just worked under the table a bunch. The bottom line is they want to raise retirement up so that they don't have to rely so much on SSI filling the gap. A lot of people don't know, but you can get SSI and retirement if your retirement is under a certain amount, which is that $800, $900 area. Next thing, fourth statement from Bernie. We will increase cost of living adjustments to keep up with the rising cost of healthcare and prescription drugs by establishing a consumer price index for the elderly. Now, they already have they have a CPI-E, which is the elderly version. They've been keeping tabs on it and doing the calculations on it for an extremely long time. The whole point here is they actually want to use it. Currently, they're using what's called a CPI-W, which is a urban wage earners kind of index. And as you know, the disabled, the retired, they don't really follow the same spending habits as an urban individual living in the city. They follow the spending habits of an elderly individual. So the bottom line is they want to use this different cost of living adjustment to go ahead and be more accurate for those who are elderly, okay, retired. All right. Now, that's what Bernie had to say. I want to bring us over to what Joe Biden had to say, President Biden, when it comes to the outlook for the Social Security and Medicare trust funds. This is directly from his June 2nd, 2022 statement from his briefing room. This is from the White House. Here we go. Today's report from the trustees of the Social Security and Medicare trust funds shows that the strong economic recovery driven by and remember, this is from the White House, so it's going to be a lot of me stuff, driven by my economic and vaccination plans has strengthened programs that millions of Americans rely on and has put our nation in a better fiscal position. The Social Security and Medicare hospital insurance trust funds will be able to pay benefits on a timely basis for longer than previously projected before the American Rescue Plan passed. The trustees' report says that those improvements are a result in part. Now, as a lawyer, I hear when we read this, remember, first thing we recognize is that this is me stuff, right? Me, White House. Let's read that last sentence again. The trustees' report says, created by the trustees, they made a report. Here's what it says, that those improvements, the whole reason this thing is happening, are a result in part, but not the whole thing, of a faster recovery in employment, earnings, and economic growth than previously projected. Now, obviously, the White House to some degree is going to, take, I guess you would say, some sort of credit for that, but the reality is people wanted to get back to work to be able to afford things and pay for things. I think the people more achieved and improved and faster recovery of an economy than the White House. But look, it goes either way, whether President Biden did it or the general population just wanted to get back out there, work, and earn money. Whoever, the bottom line is still, this helped our trust fund because more people were paying directly into the Social Security payroll tax, which increased the trust funds. Let's keep reading. Okay. Last month, the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office projected that the deficit will fall by $1.7 trillion this year, the largest deficit reduction in a single year on record. Now, with that said, I don't know directly how accurate that's going to be because we're seeing other reports where essentially we're seeing a $5 trillion increase on top. And usually what these reports do is they'll say that there will be a projected deficit or fall in the budget. When the budget still goes up, it's just not going up as much as my apologies. When the deficit goes up, like how much money we owe, as a country to these other countries and wealthy people that we're borrowing from, when the deficit goes up, they didn't expect it to go up to here. They just expected it to go up to here. That's usually what they mean by this. It's not going to go up, yada, yada, yada. So the bottom line is, instead of seeing a massive increase, we're seeing a massive increase with slightly less than was projected. What's funny about this is that this tactic was actually used on, oh, Shirley Bennett. Howdy, madam. Thank you for the 99-cent donation. Thank you. Very cool. So what's interesting about this report from President Biden is that back in the day, they would use the similar tactic with GM Motors and other car companies, where if they started to lose money, they would report that they had, expected this, massive losses, but they only lost this. And they would project then that basically they had an increase of about this. And that got them in trouble because they were reporting it on their 10K statements. A 10K statement is basically your yearly report. They were also putting it on 10Qs, which were the quarterly. It's a financial report. And they got in a lot of trouble because it was misguiding investors as to whether or not they should invest into a company like GM and things like that. But we're seeing a little bit of that razzle dazzle right here. Now he goes on to continue. Okay, while my economic agenda has put us in better fiscal position, cutting the deficit by the largest amount in a single year on record and strengthening Social Security and Medicare, congressional Republicans have put forward a different approach. Led by Chair Rick Scott, their plan would put these programs on the chopping block every 5 years. Now remember, we did that video about Rick Scott, and Rick Scott said we should only have these rules in place and have to be reviewed every 5 years. Now, that is a terrible, terrible idea. It's horrible. I get what he was trying to say. He was trying to say every 5 years we need to look at these rules, these programs, and see if they're still valid. But what I think would have been better is, instead of putting them on the chopping block of potentially not voting them through every 5 years, maybe having a review cycle to see how efficient they are. Maybe doing an audit every 5 years would be really good, because there's one thing that the US government does not do well, and that's auditing itself. They're terrible at that. That's why we end up with a lot of money being wasted, and we don't know where it goes. Now, here we go. That's not the way to strengthen these programs, President Biden says. I will work with anyone willing to have an open and honest conversation about growing our economy, bringing down inflation, improving our fiscal position, and strengthening the programs that millions of Americans rely on. That's what President Biden had to say about this particular situation. Liberty, thank you. That's true. I love these. I drink these all the time. I guess they have a lot of sugar and caffeine probably. And I'm not really sure, but they keep me going when I'm working outside. So that's awesome. Thank you for the donation. So now here's the thing, guys, that you need to know about this. I've kind of read to you what Bernie wants to do. I've read to you what the White House is explaining and kind of outlining. Now I'm going to read to you specifically what the news is saying about it. The Social Security new bill could give seniors an extra $2,400 a year. This is by Vance Cariaga, July 9th, 2022. So 3 days ago. Here we go. And this is basically from GoBankingRates.com. Social Security recipients, and I'm reading directly from the article, could get an additional $2,400 a year in benefits if a new bill recently introduced to Congress wins approval, something seniors would no doubt welcome as surging inflation wipes out their annual cost of living increases. The Social Security Expansion Act was introduced on June 9th by U.S. Rep. Peter DeFazio, Democrat of Oregon, and U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders, obviously of Vermont. Now it says they're independent Vermont. Okay. CBS News reported, under terms of the bill, anyone who is a current Social Security recipient or who will turn 62 in 2023 would receive an extra $200 in each monthly check. And remember, this bill is looking to the future of what 2023 is going to equate to. So a lot of people are wondering when this bill is going to give them $200 per month. Is it going to be this month? It wouldn't be this month. It's got to be first passed, and it's got some expectations for when it's going to go into place in the future, being 2023. The bill is timely for a couple of reasons, this article says. First, it follows the Social Security Administration announcement earlier this month that Americans will stop receiving their full Social Security benefits in about 13 years without actions to bolster the program. It was 10 years. It's increasing now out into the future because the bottom line is we made it through the COVID situation where people weren't paying in a lot of money into the Social Security payroll tax. So we've made it, and it's kind of lengthening out a little bit, which is excellent. It also comes during a period of historically high inflation that has a particularly big impact on seniors living on fixed incomes, many of whom rely on Social Security payments. This year's Social Security cost of living adjustment, COLA, of 5.9%, is based on inflation's figures from 2021. But since then, inflation has pushed well over 8%. They're even talking about potentially even 11%. I'll go back to the article here, meaning Social Security recipients today are actually losing money, which you guys all know. Everything's very expensive. When you get the boost or the yearly increase, it's not enough to cover all the expenses. Okay, the new bill aims to ease the financial strain by boosting each recipient's monthly check. The average monthly Social Security check is about $1,658. And when I started doing this type of law, Social Security disability benefits, the average check was around $1,100 to $1,200. It's actually a little bit less than that, but we just called it that. Meaning a $200 increase would represent about a 12% boost to the average person of $1,658, which will probably go up to around $1,800, almost reaching $1,900, depending on what happens going forward over the next couple of years. Many seniors rely on Social Security for the majority, if not all, of their income, said Martha Sheehan, president of the National Association of Registered Social Security Analysts. $200 a month can make a significant difference for many people. In addition to boosting the monthly payment, the bill also would make several changes to the program itself. One would be to base the annual COLA on the Consumer Price Index for the elderly, the CPI-E, instead of the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical CPI-W. Right? We talked about the elderly index versus the urban wage earners index. You want this one. This one gives you more per year. Although, to be honest with you, the way even this one is calculated is not very good. Another change would be adding more funding by applying the Social Security payroll tax on all income above $250,000, currently earning above $147,000, which aren't subject to the Social Security tax. Oh, right, that's right. It increased to $147,000 at the current rate. Now, even if the bill in its current form doesn't pass Congress, observers expect some kind of change to Social Security to ensure it serves the needs of recipients well into the future. People at this point have an expectation that they are going to and they must pass some sort of future bill at the Senate, at the House, and then getting it to Biden. Now, here's politically, well, let me finish the article and then I'll politically tell you what I think. Okay, now, bottom line, even if the bill in its current form doesn't pass Congress, observers expect some kind of change to Social Security. Final sentence, I'm confident changes will be made. Sheehan said, or Shedden, I don't know if this is bill that will pass, but there's more and more movement on it. And here's why. Here's why she's saying that. She's saying that because other Democratic senators and House reps promoted and pushed forward this version of this bill under a different name, the Social Security 2100 Act. Current bill, which is the Social Security Expansion Act, basically does not achieve what the old bill did, which was it made it so that the Social Security trust funds would make it all the way to 2100. This one is saying we're going to make it to somewhere in the 2070s, right? Somewhere around there. There's no perfect math because these chief actuaries and actuaries at the Social Security Administration, they never get it perfectly. And trying to figure out something that's going to be essentially 50 years down the line, there's no way to have a perfect result. Okay, so here's the bottom line of what I believe is going to happen. They keep changing who is proposing this bill. They change the name. They change some of the financial figures to make them make more sense as we go forward. But they keep upping the ante. And it's like there's a social ladder in the Democratic Party with who basically gets to take a bill and likely get it passed. By the time the biggies get it, right? The Schumers, the Bernies, things like that. By the time those individuals get a bill and it's handed off to them, that means that it's getting ripe to go ahead and be brought through the different committees to go ahead and make it to the floor for a vote. The reason that this is a big thing now is that Bernie Sanders is not just a side sponsor, but one of the main named parties. Now, if Bernie Sanders is to get something like this promoted at the Senate and then get the House kind of riled up and both the Senate and the House pass it, if something like that happens, President Biden is going to feel an immense squeeze because before becoming president, his main faculties for the Social Security Administration relied on the 2100 Social Security 2100 Act. And this bill is the modern next year version of that act. So not only did he promise that he intended to pass something like this, it would also put him in a very negative light for him to reject it, because the bottom line is it is the thing that gets Social Security people voting for him. Now, there's 70 million Social Security retired individuals. And the numbers are all over the darn place. And I wish we had perfectly accurate results. But there's, anywhere, let's say 16, 17, 18 million of these disabled individuals that can potentially add to that as well. But the bottom line is there's a massive amount of voters. And what presidents look at, more so than any TV show, looking at votes online, and you always know how these big singing shows are going to turn out, because you go online, you look at which person's videos have the most views, and that dictates every time which one is the most popular, and that person always wins. Well, the presidents are masters of exactly that, which is the popular vote. They know how to find what people want, and they know how to present what people want, and then play along with trying to get it passed. If President Biden is given this bill, it will almost certainly receive his signature. Will this bill be passed this month? Almost certainly not. If it passes this month, will you be receiving $200 per month more going forward? You won't be receiving it this month. However, into the future, going into 2023, you'll likely be seeing that boost, which is excellent. Okay, guys, that's this video. I have another video coming out shortly. You have an absolutely amazing, amazing night. I will be back in about 15 minutes. There are some videos that I'm going to be doing. One of them, honestly, I don't even know if I'm going to do it, because the bottom line is it puts the SSA in a bit of a bad light. They unfortunately recently had an issue with one of their top executives having a drinking problem, and it's not a good thing. I'll think about whether or not I'm going to be doing a video on that. I think it's important. Anyways, once again, please like, subscribe, leave 5-star reviews. The link is in the chat section below. And here's a very important thing. I want you guys to tell me if you support this bill. Do we go ahead and make rich people pay a lot more taxes to make the Social Security program have the capacity to go 70 plus years into the future to be solvent, and boost the lower benefits of those individuals so that they meet a baseline and increase benefits by those $200 a month? Or do we allow the wealthy to go ahead and not be taxed for something that they receive zero benefit for? Okay, I will catch you a little bit later. Have a wonderful night, and we'll go from there. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.